Okay, so today I'm going to do a overview of our carbonated beverage filler. This filler is geared towards carbonated beverages that need CO2 to stop any foaming. Now this system will also work without any CO2. The pump is self-priming, and the CO2 is actually on a whole different line in a whole different nozzle. So if you don't want any CO2 in your fluid, you just would disable the CO2 and it won't need it to run. Okay, let's go ahead and get started here. I'll kind of show you around our, this is a single beer filler. You can hook up multiple heads if you want to run multiple bottles at the same time. We'll start with boring stuff. We'll start with wiring. So for wires, there's 3 wires. You have an air line, CO2 line, power. Always hook up power after everything is hooked up here. So for air, that air line is just going to this top solenoid here to control your air. Then you have CO2. This CO2 line is just going to the bottom solenoid to control CO2. Your CO2, what you want to do is from your tank and your regulator. Your regulator, you just want to hook up and just put the system basically at minimum. You don't need much CO2 at all to run this. From your CO2 line, use a 1/4 inch line and go straight into this adapter here on the air solenoid. This is your inlet. Your outlet is right here. You will basically have this 1/4 inch tube that runs up. It has an 1/8 inch ID, so you have an 1/8 inch ID adapter to a 1/4 inch ID, which will go up to the CO2 nozzle. Now this nozzle can be in or out. If you're running CO2, I'd suggest it's in, of course. If you're not running CO2, you can take it out if you want, or leave it in. Then you have your air line. So from your compressor, go to this inlet here for air. And then your outlets are right here, and they are set up. You do have a flow control valve right here on this solenoid to control how fast that nozzle is going to go down on the bottle. That way, if your compressor's at like 100 psi, you can kind of slow down that pressure there. We suggest you just run it at about 40 psi is about all you need. Alright, so that's basically how you wire it. I guess I can show you how to do the tubing. So if you're looking at the pump, the left side will go to your reservoir. Right side will go to the filler, to the nozzle here. On the nozzle, you'll have a food grade stop, stainless steel nozzle. Any of these plastic connections we sell, they do come from Cole Palmer. You could get them from there or from us if you need some extras. Alright, let's look at the faceplate here. So you have a pump display, timer, a control, and a pump. So the pump, we kind of went over that. This will display how much you are filling. This timer, you can use these up and down buttons to control how much of a delay to put in if you are doing CO2. So we have a 2-second delay for the nozzle to go down and the bottle to fill with CO2 before it starts to fill. That's what it's going to be for. You can use the up and down buttons to change that. When you like your setting, go ahead and just click mode and it'll change it for you. You have an up and down switch. This is what actually activates the system. If you go ahead and click down, the head will come down and the fill will start activating after 2 seconds. If for some reason something's going wrong when it's filling, go ahead and just click up and it'll stop everything. Then you have a bunch of buttons on the side here. You have a key switch to turn the system off and on. You have an enter button, up, reset, and down. Enter will purge it. If you don't want to move the head and you just want to purge the pump, go ahead and just click enter. And that'll actually just run the pump and nothing else. It'll go to its set dosed amount. If you want to stop it, go ahead and click reset. Now reset will take a second, but once everything's reset, the dose will go back to whatever your pre-programmed amount is, and you're set to go. The up and down buttons, that's used for if you want to change any settings, but the big thing is your dose amount. If I click up, my dose amount or fill amount goes up. If I click down, it goes down. So you don't have to eyeball it or anything, you just set it and forget it. Then you have a reset button over here. That again is to stop any purging. You can also stop any fills with the head down by hitting that reset button. I can see I could go ahead and reset it there. Okay, you do also have a settings. This you really don't have to mess with, but if you do want to mess with settings, you could go ahead and hold this reset button down. And I'll kind of show you some settings you have in here. So I'm going to basically use the up button to go through here. Mode you want to keep on dose. Current you want to keep at 2.6 amps. Calibration, this is probably the one a lot of people will change. So if your fluid is thicker or thinner, you can actually change the calibration if it does not match what the machine's running. If you did want to change this, what you would do is just hit the enter button. And you could go ahead and go through the settings. We'd want to keep everything as a wet fill. This pump works as dry, but we're going to use it as wet. So I'm going to go ahead and just click enter again. And then it's going to say how you can actually change the calibration here. I'm just going to leave it at 2. It's going to save that setting. Let's go through some others. Again, I'm going to click the up button. You have a dose speed. You could change the speed the pump's running. You don't want to mess with that one. Don't want to mess with that one. Suck back. This will be after the fill is done filling, the pump will actually reverse to help stop any drippage. You could change that to whatever you'd like. Acceleration. So the pump will actually ramp. If you hear it, it starts slow. It goes woo. So it starts at a slow feed, and then it gradually goes quicker and quicker to reach its max velocity. The higher the number you go there, the faster it's going to reach its max velocity. You also have one at the end, so the end of the fill, the pump's going to slow to a stop. You can change the direction, but don't mess with that one. Don't mess with enable inputs. And you can actually do a factory reset, but don't mess with that one. If you do, check this video to see what we have it preset at. And you can exit the settings. I'm going to go ahead and just click exit. It's going to exit. So that's kind of an overview of the system. Again, mostly you're just going to use the up and down key to change your fill volume. Go ahead and just click down to activate the system. The system will fill. When the system is done filling, that is when you would click the up button to bring your head back up. If you don't want the head to go back up, you can just leave it in the down position after the fill, and it will be it'll just wait for you. So right now the fill's done, the head's still down. If I go ahead and click up, it's going to go ahead and lift the nozzle back up. Now another thing it has is a little backstop here. This backstop is used to fill multiple bottles. Right now it's set for this standard beer bottle. I would just put my beer bottle right in the V there, and it'll actually align it every time. You have 2 screws. You can just loosen these screws and move this back and forth as needed. And that's kind of the overview. That is how this system works. If you have any questions, please go to www.rockymountainplc and contact us there or get information off the website. Thanks and have a great day.